143 Ministries. Is this a fairly new program?
No, these guys have been around for about 6 years. And but they've come up with a very unique way of looking at the recovery community and recovery in general. It's called Redefining Recovery. And Cliff Nobles runs it, but they have two different rehab centers. One's called Catherine's Way. One is called Emmanuel House. So Catherine's Way is for the women. Emmanuel House is out on a farm for the guys. And I think they're up to 15 transition homes where, you go from the rehab center to the transition home and then, back to normal life, hopefully.
And it just struck me, the pressures of running a business as we do. And I know, of course, it's highly confidential, but do you find business owners or business leaders that are part of either of those two groups?
You do, but like if you're in like an Alcoholics Anonymous environment, it's Alcoholics Anonymous for a reason.
Sure.
If you're working more with like 143, they look at themselves as missionaries to Augusta. So they're out there trying to reach people. They have a really interesting story. If you go to their website, you can read the vision for how all this came to be in place. There's a church called The River that they have as well that meets on Friday nights, and just some really good stuff going on. I actually was at Victory one night and saw a guy named Adam come and present some of the material that they've developed. I was blown away. I mean, I've been sober for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of things. I've spoken to lots of different groups, told my story, and when I saw what they were doing, I was just completely mesmerized. Going, where has this been? Why is this not being taught all over America? And I'll give you a quick rundown on it. It's called there's a lot of different things they teach, but the primary thing they talk about is the problem response chart. Because if you think about this, you got to broaden your mind a little bit when it comes to recovery, right? Everybody needs recovery, right? It's not, there is drug and alcohol recovery, but look at the average person that's out there. And we all, and people go, well, what do you mean by that? Well, everybody needs recovery from what was lost, from what was stolen by the enemy, and what was freely surrendered due to the fall of man in the garden.
My wife likes to say everyone has some sort of ism. It may be food, it might be drugs, or boyfriends, girlfriends, or what have you. Everyone is sharing something.
I've said this for years, that when you really look at the root cause of whether it's bitterness, whether it's anger, whether it's food addiction, whether it's porn addiction, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sadness, whatever it is, almost every time it's people are trying to fill a God-sized hole with something else.
Yeah.
And so what the problem response chart says is this, is that we all have innate needs, right? The need to be accepted, the need to be seen in a favorable light, the need for others to see us in a favorable light, the need to emotional needs, physical needs. And these are God-given innate needs, and they're good, okay? But here's what happens, is that a problem happens. And this problem could have been from your childhood. It could be from something that happened yesterday, but it makes you feel a certain way. I'll give you a church example. How about this? You walk into church on a Sunday, and you walk up to the pastor, and there's a couple people talking to him, and they're in deep conversation. But you walk up, and they kind of ignore you, but they don't mean to ignore you. They're just in conversation.
Focused.
But you feel like, well, they're just ignoring me, and they're not talking to me, so you walk away. And you walk away feeling a little bit like, well, I don't belong. Were they talking about me? I mean, what was that all about? So you go to another group of men. Same thing is going on. There's guys, they're talking. You walk up, and nobody really acknowledges you, even though they know you're there. And you walk away from that one going, well, nobody loves me in this church. Nobody likes me. Why am I even here? And you go sit down, and you isolate, and you sit there, and you stew on it, right? Well, what's really happening there is some of your innate needs are not being met. You don't feel like you're part of the group. You don't feel important. You don't feel liked. And so when that happens to somebody, we call that being in the void. When you get in your negative emotions, it puts you in the void. And here's where you got to make a decision. What happens next? Do you act out with behaviors that can be, negative behaviors like isolation. Maybe I lash out. Maybe I go over here and go, "Do you hear what those guys over there are doing?" And so you do different things to make yourself feel better. And that's where most people stop. They have behaviors that, are not the best, but they're just trying to avoid this feeling that they have. Now, if you're an addict or an alcoholic, you take that to the next level, right? And you go, I don't want to feel this. I'm going to go get drunk. Or I don't like the way I feel. I'm going to go get high because I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
And that's what happens to people, and it just spirals out of control.